Hello BookTube. Welcome to my first weekly reads of 2018. Before I start though, I would like to welcome all my new subscribers to my channel. I was really quite surprised to see how my channel has grown. I don't know how I missed it, but I would really like to welcome all my new subscribers and say that I really hope you enjoy your time here and that I continue to give you ideas on books that you might find interesting to read yourselves. Anyway, let's start off with my weekly reads. I've got one and then two okay, if not really good, and then one that was really fantastic. So we're going to start off with the least impressed first, right? So the first one is Anne Holt's The Lion's Mouth. Now in this book it starts off with the President, Prime Minister being assassinated, and the crime then goes on, well, the investigation then goes from there. Folks, Anne Holt and I have now broken up. I bought 3 books of hers without having read one, and now I've read all 3, and I'm never going to buy another one. I'm afraid to say that while in the past, not this book, the crime side of it was interesting enough to keep me interested, well, keep me going, turning pages, I can't even say that this one did that. I find her characters unrealistic. Take for example, in here you have the male cop turning around, picking out a woman, saying, you know, it's not Billy, it's Billy T. And then she picks him out because he's now a misogynist. And by the end of the page, not the end of the chapter, the end of the page, she's having a good laugh about it where she's crying. It's unrealistic. People don't swing emotions that fast. Another thing is, a kid went, he was very upset, so he slammed down his cup of coffee. Should I demonstrate what that is like? I mean, here we go, 1, 2, I'm not doing that, because we all know what's going to happen. There's going to be coffee everywhere, I'm going to burn my hand, possibly break the cup, or something is going to fall off my desk and that's going to break. The stuff that she puts in is unrealistic. I mean, in the past I spoke about a book, one of her books, where they're at a dinner party and the woman's water breaks. And there they'd whop her off onto the floor, whip off her tights. They don't have time even to boil the water enough to sterilize the shears, I might add, before the baby arrives. I mean, really? That's not the way it happens in real life. I just, you know, I need to have something where I can make a connection and go, yeah, no, that makes sense. And she's just not doing it for me. Between the characters and their little childish temper tantrums and defeating the laws of medicine and science, I'm just, it's over. We're not doing it anymore. Sorry, love. The next one was Britt-Marie Was Here by Fredrick Backman. Now, I loved his A Man Called Ove, however you want to say it. It was Ove when I read it, so it's Ove in my head. And that book was absolutely fabulous. I really, really enjoyed that one. So I've got 2 more of his, and this is the first that I've read since. And it wasn't bad, actually. In the beginning I was very hesitant because it felt like this was an attempt to recreate Ove, except with a female protagonist, because Britt-Marie also falls into the mold of an elderly person who is misunderstood. But I must admit that 2/3 into the book I ceased to care and just enjoyed it. If I was thinking critically about this, I would say that there are far too many similarities, that there is an essence of an attempt at a recreation, but the story in itself was quite nice, whereas Ove was a man who was really needing love. Britt-Marie is a woman who needs to investigate who she is. In this story, you meet her when she's going off to an employment agency to find work, because her husband has had an affair and she has left him and is now looking, well, she read an article in the newspaper where a woman died in the house and the neighbors alerted the authorities because of the smell, and she feels that, you know, but she's got nobody at home now, so if she gets a job, at least if she's missing, people will notice. So because she's uneducated and because she's spent her entire life looking after her husband, she has no skills, so she ends up getting a job as a caretaker basically in a recreational center in what we would call in South Africa a dorp. In other words, a place that if you're driving through and you blink, you're going to miss it. This place has been affected horrifically by the economic crisis, so there's a lot of poverty. There isn't much. Most of the businesses are closed. Most of the houses are for sale. And it is here that Britt-Marie starts to find out who she is as a person. And that part was nice. I liked the story. Let's put it that way. I liked the story. I don't want to think too hard about how similar it was to Ove or Uva. I just like the story. I did feel that it probably would have meant more if the other characters were explored a bit more thoroughly, because they were still, you know, supporting folks in my mind. I didn't really feel them. But it was a fun read, and it was a pleasant read. It's still got a bit of a, I'm not going to say tearjerker quality. I didn't cry. I hardly ever cry. If you don't cry over Dobby, chances are you're not going to cry. I could see that there was, it was a bittersweet story, let's put it that way. It was a bittersweet story. The next one is The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. And this one I was quite pleasantly surprised with. I was hooked right from the first page. I'm not going to claim that this is a work of literary genius, but it really did capture me. It captured my imagination. When I start dreaming about what I'm reading, then I know that I am fully engrossed in the story, and that's what happened with this one. So here you have a woman who is, well, she's grown up in a bookshop, really. And most of the books that they have are non-fiction, and she has managed to accidentally fall into writing biographies. Most, well, of dead people, people who've passed away, where she uses letters, diaries, etc. to put together her manuscripts. Nothing has been published officially in a book form, but she has had her works published in journals. Anyway, an author manages, well, somehow or another stumbles upon this, and she asks the girl in the story, and I've just lost her name because I'm now thinking Britt-Marie, and it's not Britt-Marie. She was Margaret. And anyway, she asks Margaret to write her true biography, because she has always lied. When journalists have come and interviewed her, she would give them a Vida Winter tale, that was her name, I think, about some incredible, unbelievable fiction that she then tabled as her life story, and people used to suck it up and enjoy it. And anyway, so Margaret gets this letter requesting this, and she has to give it some thought. Yeah, so that's basically your premise, is her writing this woman's biography, hearing the story, verifying the facts. And it was actually a really pleasant read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. There is a bit of a gothic air to this that I enjoyed as well. There's also a bit of a fairy tale air to it, which is strange because usually that doesn't appeal to me. But there was a character there that she encounters, and initially I was thinking, oh, you know, is this Jack and the Beanstalk kind of a thing? And then it was like, no, she's just made Peter Pan. But it's more than that. I don't want to make it sound like this is simplified, that these are cliched characters that you've encountered in the past. It's not that case at all. It's like there was a seed that was planted from something, and it grew into its own thing, its own characters. So if you're up for a story about writing, a story about storytelling, a story that is kind of partially unreliable narratory, then maybe this is one to think about, because it's a very pleasant read. It goes quickly, and it was a world that I felt quite lost in. So yeah, The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield, I would strongly recommend it if that sounds like something you'd be interested in. The last book I read is The Conservationist by Nadine Gordimer, which is a book that won the Booker Prize, and as it was published in '74, I'm assuming that happened around then. The story, okay, so you've got a farmer, his name is Mering, and he is an exceptionally wealthy businessman. He sells pig iron, which a Google search revealed that it's used as an ingredient in making multiple other things. Apparently it's very brittle, blah blah, you don't need to know that much. But anyway, so he travels around the world selling pig iron. He is stinking rich. So he buys a farm basically as a form of tax evasion, because he can use you know, the loss on the farm as a write-off on his taxes. And Mering slowly but surely grows to love this farm, as does the reader through his eyes. But he is a man who is incredibly, utterly isolated. And throughout the novel, you realize that he is isolating himself more and more. And the only place that he is happy is on this farm, except that he doesn't actually live there. He only lives there over the weekend. But he hasn't even made the farmhouse into his home. He sleeps on the couch. He doesn't have stuff there. It's basically just the land that he's loving. But now, because this book is written in 1974, we can't ignore the fact that there's going to be a lot of political commentary in this. And this comes about because you see how the people on the farm, the black laborers, are treated. It's not that Mering treats them badly. In fact, as far as apartheid went, he actually treated them well. But you can still see how they are belittled, how they are treated as though they don't understand, they don't know, etc. One of the most touching things in this book happens right at the end, and that is when you realize that the only way a black man in South Africa could own property, a piece of property, was to be buried underneath it. In other words, he could own the land that was his grave. And that was quite the shocking reveal. But yes, this book, as I said, covers themes like isolation, which would have also been relevant because during apartheid South Africa was cut off from the rest of the world with sanctions, etc. And how Mering, by isolating himself, he was not benefiting at all, and neither was South Africa as a country. It also shows how he was basically completely ineffective. He couldn't even stop the kids on the farm from stealing the guinea fowl eggs. He wanted, to create something that was grand. This book also shows you the harshness of nature. So currently, as you know, we're in one hell of a drought here, where our dams are, well, the last time I checked, they were 29%, and it hasn't rained, so I don't even know if I want to see. It starts off where there is a massive drought, and the way she describes the land was fabulous. I mean, that's what you see when you go outside now. Well, I mean, if I had a farm, I don't. But I've been to farms. And then there is the fire, because when you've got droughts, you've got fires. Just, if you're interested, go Google what happened in Knysna last year. And then you end up with the flood, and you have a harsh nature is, but how nature manages to bounce back, and you kind of get the feeling about that with the people as well. It was a fantastic read, actually. It's written in a stream of consciousness, so you have Mering's thoughts that are bouncing backwards and forwards all the time. Time is not a restriction. It needs you to be completely and utterly awake while you're reading, and God help you if you put the book down because, sleep, or you need to make supper or something, because you need to reread a bit then so that you can get back into the train of thought. It's not an easy book to put down, but it was really a very, very interesting read. So I would strongly recommend that, particularly if you plan on reading South African fiction, or if you're planning on reading Booker Prize winners, because this one really did deserve it, although I see it was a joint winner, so I'm curious to look up more about that. Anyway, because there is a certain addiction here with buying books, although this time I had a good excuse. I got gift vouchers from the kids when I finished teaching them at the end of last year. And now that it's no longer the Christmas craze at shopping centres, I decided that I would go and redeem my Christmas vouchers, and I went book shopping. And I only got two. I got Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, which is also another Booker Prize winner, and I am really looking forward to this. It's another book about Thomas Cromwell, so Disillusion, you've done me service there. At least I know what this one's about. And then this is one that I've been looking for a long time, and that is Hag's Seed by Margaret Atwood. It's part of the Hogarth Classics with the rewriting of Shakespeare, and this one is based on The Tempest, if memory serves me right. So that is my weekly reads. That is my purchases for the week. Actually, it's not even a week. It's been about 4 or 5 days. I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody else has managed to plow through in the first week of 2018. Happy reading. Bye.